What's up, guys? In this video, we are going to go over 15 ways that you can make yourself more attractive to women, and these ways are backed by science. Okay, this is not just stuff that I made up. So the first way is to present yourself as higher status. Now, in a 2010 study from the University of Wales Institute, they found that men pictured next to a silver Bentley were regarded as more attractive than those who were pictured with a red Ford Fiesta. And in a 2014 study from Cardiff Metropolitan University, they found that men pictured in a luxury apartment were rated as more attractive than those in a control group. So these are things to keep in mind when building your online presence, either on Instagram or Facebook or on your online dating profile. They don't say that you need to actually possess these things. These studies were done where they just showed pictures of these people next to these things or in these apartments. So that's just something to keep in mind when you are deciding which pictures to include on your Instagram or on your online dating profile. Okay, the next way to make yourself more attractive to women is to look older. All right, now this is something that psychologists call the George Clooney effect. In a 2010 study of almost 4,000 heterosexual adults, the study suggested that women often prefer older men. And this is most pronounced as women became more financially independent. Quote, "We think this suggests greater financial independence, gives women more confidence in partner choices, and attracts them to powerful, attractive older men." This is maybe a little bit of speculation, but the fact remains that evolutionary psychologists say that younger women and older men often pair up because while fertility lasts only from puberty to menopause in women, it lasts for a lot longer in men. So this is something that kind of goes against what we think to be true. This is backed by science technically, but it's kind of common knowledge that everybody knows that youth is more attractive. Personally speaking, as I've gotten older, I have gotten comments from women. Got like a little bit of gray hair here, and a lot of women talk about how it's sexy and this and that. But if you're seeing me next to my younger self, who knows which one they would go for, right? So this is way number 2, technically. Number 3 is grow a light beard. In a 2013 study from researchers at the University of New South Wales, researchers had 177 heterosexual men and 350 heterosexual women look at images of 10 men in one of 4 conditions: clean-shaven, light stubble, heavy stubble, or full beard. And the women said that the most attractive beard length was heavy stubble. Facial hair correlates not only with maturity and masculinity, but also with dominance and aggression. So heavy stubble, interesting. And it says here an intermediate level of beardedness is most attractive. So this is something that not everybody can do. I know certain, like Asian guys, for example, are less, it's harder for them to grow a beard. I definitely don't have that problem. I just don't like having a beard. I prefer light stubble, if anything, and it's only out of laziness, not necessarily to be more attractive. But if you are capable of growing a beard, then according to this study, it says that you should do it. And I've never tried this myself because I don't need it, but I've heard that minoxidil on your face will actually work as well. But don't quote me on that. Number 4, build muscle, but not too much, as this says right here. In a 2000 study from the University of California, Los Angeles, 286 women looked at pictures of shirtless men and indicated which ones seemed like they would make the best long and short-term partners. Results showed that women were more likely to want short-term relationships with the guys who had big muscles. Characteristics like muscularity are cues of genes that increase offspring viability or reproductive success. And then it says here, they add that less muscular men were thought to be a better fit for long-term relationships. So generally as men, most of the time, I would assume here, I haven't interviewed all men in the world, but most of the time we're more interested in short-term relationships. Because if you have a short-term relationship, you can turn that into a long-term relationship. But if you don't have at least a short-term relationship, you're not going to get that long-term one, right? And it's kind of common knowledge now in the dating scene for men, at least, that there's beta males, there's alpha males, and nobody really wants to be the beta male in a long-term relationship. At least that's my perception. So bottom line, get to the gym, work out. This should be obvious for most people that, having bigger muscles will make you more attractive. Number 5, be kind. One of the best documented findings in psychology is the halo effect. So in a 2014 Chinese study, 100 young people looked at images of men's and women's faces and rated them on attractiveness. Now, what's interesting about this study is that each face was paired with a word that described either a positive personality trait or a negative personality trait. And the results showed that the pictures that were described with positive traits were rated more attractive. So according to this study, at least, what I'm trying to say is that it's one thing to look at a picture and say, oh yeah, that's more attractive. I like this face with the word kind right there. But it's another thing. I'm sure we all know jerks who are very attractive and they're not kind, for example. But according to this study, it says that being kind is, or positive personality traits like being kind will make you more attractive. Number 6, wear red. A 2010 cross-cultural study with participants from China, England, Germany, and the US found that women are most attracted to men wearing red. So there were a couple experiments that they did here, and the first one was where they compared men who were wearing a red shirt to men who were wearing a green shirt. And they found that the men who were wearing a red shirt were seen as more attractive. And then later on, they compared the red shirted men to other colors as well, and found that red was like the most attractive color for men to be wearing. Also, interestingly, it says here, participants generally weren't aware that the man's clothing color was influencing their perceptions of his attractiveness. So this is something that women will kind of not really notice that they like, if that makes sense. So bottom line, wear red, buy some red clothing. Number 7, make your partner laugh. Multiple studies indicate that women are more attracted to men who can make them laugh. The same doesn't go for men. In one 2006 study published in the journal Evolution of Human Behavior, researchers asked undergraduate students to indicate how much they valued a partner's ability to make them laugh and their own ability to make their partner laugh. Results showed that women valued both their partner's sense of humor and their own ability to make their partner laugh. Bottom line, women will be more attracted to you if you make them laugh. This is also kind of common knowledge. If you're funny, if people laugh when they're around you, they'll enjoy being around you more. It's kind of common knowledge, right? It's not a sure thing. If you can make them laugh, they'll sleep with you, for example. But it definitely doesn't hurt. And in my own experience, the trick to being funny is to just be unexpected, because you can't be funny without saying something unexpected. That's what humor is all about. Humor implies surprise. Number 7, 8, walk a dog. In a 2014 experiment from the Rupin Academic Center in Israel and the University of Michigan, 100 Israeli women read vignettes about men. So basically they had these little stories, a vignette about men. I guess these don't include pictures. These are just stories, interestingly enough. So you're not actually looking at them. They had 2 categories of men. Some were cads and some were dads, right? So the cads, as it says here, they would cheat on their partner. They would get into fights, kind of like troublemakers or bad boys. And there were dads who were like nice guys. They would work hard and take care of their kids, that kind of thing. So the cad, when the stories had cads in them that had a dog, or they would like walk their dog or something, or who owned a dog, the women would see them as more attractive, and the same would go for dads as well. But overall, the cads who had dogs were rated as the most attractive type of person. So bottom line, if you can embody the bad boy traits without going full bad boy on it and still retain some of your humanity by owning a dog, then women will find you extremely attractive. The next one is practice mindfulness. So this is something, basically what happened is they took 91 students and they put them through a speed dating session. And before the speed dating session, they filled out questionnaires, and there were statements on there that they had to either agree with or disagree with. Some of these statements were, I perceive my feelings and emotions without having to react to them. I notice changes in my body, such as whether my breathing slows down or speeds up. I'm good at finding the words to describe my feelings. So basically what happened is that after these speed dating sessions, the students would rate the other people that they were talking to. and specifically how sexy they were, how sexy they found that person, and how much they would like to date them. And the women, it found that, okay, so everybody was more attracted to the more attractive people, and their attractiveness was rated by independent judges that were not part of the study. But the women, when you account for attractiveness, like after that, when you control for that, the women were more attracted to men who described themselves as mindful. So just something to keep in mind. The next one is play extreme sports. A 2014 study led by the researchers at the University of Alaska at Anchorage found that women are attracted to men who take what the researchers call hunter-gatherer risks. This was a study of 230 undergrads, and they filled out a questionnaire about how attractive they would find a partner who engaged in risky behaviors, as opposed to somebody who didn't engage in risky behaviors or engaged in low or no risk behaviors. Some of these hunter-gatherer risks included things like mountain biking, deep-sea scuba diving, and extreme rollerblading. Modern risks were things like plagiarizing an academic paper, casually handling chemicals in a lab, and not updating the virus protection software on your computer. So really just, I guess, non-physical risks, you could say. Low and no risk behaviors included biking along paved paths and carefully handling chemicals in a chemistry lab. So bottom line is that women found men who engaged in physical, athletic, sporty risks to be more attractive. Things like, they said earlier, mountain biking, scuba diving, extreme rollerblading. Some other things would basically be, from what it says here, anything that you would see on ESPN Extreme Sports, windsurfing, regular surfing, skateboarding. You could even make the argument things like boxing or kickboxing or MMA would also qualify. And so the next one, wear a scented deodorant. So this kind of reminded me of the Axe body spray commercials where you see the guy like sprays himself with Axe and then all of a sudden these girls just like get stuck to him. I always kind of thought that was a joke, but in this study, it says that simply knowing you're wearing a new fragrance can make you act more confident and even make you seem more attractive to other people. So in a 2009 study published in the International Journal of Cosmetic Science, researchers gave one group of male undergraduates a spray with antimicrobial ingredients and fragrance oil, and they gave the other group an unscented spray that didn't have any antimicrobial ingredients, I guess. So over the next few days, the participants, both groups used the spray, and the ones who were using the scented spray were rated as more attractive. And what's also interesting is that when they were rated, like they reported that they felt more attractive, number one. Number two, they would show women videos of them over the previous days, and they would show the women videos of both groups, and the women would rate the ones who were wearing the scented body spray as more attractive, even though these women couldn't actually smell them. They just showed them these videos and said, which one do you think are more attractive? And the ones who were wearing the scented body spray seemed more attractive. So that's definitely an interesting bit of information there, and kind of makes me want to go out and buy some spray deodorant right now. The next one is also interesting. Chow down on garlic, it says here. So normally we think of garlic breath or people smelling like garlic as kind of gross and a turnoff. But there were a couple studies here, one from Charles University, one from the National Institute of Mental Health in the Czech Republic, and one from the University of Stirling, where they said something different. So for one of these studies, 8 men ate a slice of bread with cheese and 12 grams of fresh garlic. That's probably 2 cloves. Another 8 men ate bread and cheese with no garlic. For the next 12 hours, the men wore cotton pads under their armpits and were instructed not to use any deodorants or fragrances. So this is kind of gross. But the next day, all the men returned to the lab where 40 women smelled the pads and rated the odor on pleasantness, attractiveness, masculinity, and intensity. Results showed that the garlic group was rated more pleasant and attractive and less masculine and intense. So I think, it's possible here that the masculinity of the smell, like masculine smell, is kind of associated with like a gross smell. But basically, bottom line, if you want to integrate this into your life, just eat garlic. It seems here that 2 cloves per day is enough, which is really, it's not that much. it doesn't say, it says 12 grams of fresh garlic. So I'm assuming that implies raw garlic, or it's possibly they just say garlic bread. It doesn't really say here. The next one is to do volunteer work. So in a 2013 study from UK researchers, they found that women find men more appealing when they do volunteer work. So basically what they did here is that 30 women looked at pictures of men with a brief description of his hobbies. And they rated the ones who had like volunteering in their hobbies as more attractive. Both genders rated the person picture as more attractive for a long-term relationship, but the effect was stronger for women rating men. So this is for long-term relationships, right? This is not for short-term, which I would make the argument most men are more interested in short-term relationships than long-term relationships. But something to keep in mind, you know, when you're creating your online dating profile or maybe adding pictures to Instagram. Okay, so this next one, show off your scars. Basically, the study here, they created, they took a bunch of men and they showed their images, like images of their face to women with and without digitally added facial scars. And the ones that had facial scars were rated more attractive for short-term relationships. So obviously, this is not saying that you should go out and put a scar on your face to be more attractive. It's a little bit extreme. That's a little extreme. I wouldn't recommend that, but it's just something to kind of keep in mind if you have a facial scar, I guess, to not be ashamed of it. It's probably making you more attractive. Okay, this next one is interesting. Use open body language in your online dating photo. So in a 2016 study, researchers from the University of California, Berkeley, Stanford, and University of Texas at Austin, and Northwestern University says that we're more attracted to people who display expansive body language. So basically what happened is they had two sets of profiles with the same people. In one of the set of profiles, they had contractive positions, for example, crossing your arms, hunching your shoulders. And the other set of profiles, they had the same people, but they had they were pictured in expansive positions. And it says here, like holding their arms upward in a V or reaching out to grab something. So anyway, obviously the point here is that results showed that people in expansive postures were selected as potential dates more often than those in contracted postures. And this effect was slightly larger for women selecting men. So this goes into the whole like old school, dating advice for men where they'll say, you have to take up a lot of space. So you'll see guys like sitting on the couch with their arms kind of out like this, their legs spread. It's like it's a little exaggerated, but it's also something to keep in mind when you're in your online dating profile. Obviously, don't exaggerate it, but it's something to keep in mind. The next one is to look proud. This is actually the last one. So to look proud. This is in a 2011 University of British Columbia study. Said that heterosexual men and women prefer different emotional expressions on potential mates. So basically what happened is they had 900 North American adults look at photos of opposite sex individuals, and they were comparing people's perceptions of pride, happiness, shame, neutrality. Those were the four. And for women evaluating men, the most appealing expression was pride, and the least appealing was happiness. So it's very interesting. And what says here, adds this at the end, is that even weirder, an expression of shame was relatively attractive on both men and women. So maybe like shame, I guess being ashamed is attractive these days somehow. But the point here, I guess, is to look proud or stoic, or to not reveal a lot of emotion, as opposed to looking happy, right? What's everybody's kind of natural tendency in a photo is to smile and look at the camera, right? But if you've kind of done any research on looking attractive in pictures, you'll know that people will always tell you, don't look at the camera and smile. You shouldn't do it. You're not going to be as attractive as if you do some of these other things, like looking away or looking proud. Okay, so those were 15 ways to make yourself more attracted to women as defined by science. What do you think about those? Do you have any additional ways that maybe were not mentioned in this article? It doesn't need to necessarily be mentioned by science, but if you do, let me know. Leave me a comment.